those matters.
Okay, let's talk about the overall investment environment. 9 days ago, President Trump announced to the whole world that those were the rules for doing business in America going forward. The tariffs were here to stay. His policies were not going to change. I'm just quoting him from his Truth Social messages. And then, of course, on Wednesday, he issued this 90-day pause on most of the tariffs. And in his own words, it was because the bond markets were getting queasy and yippy. So here's what one small business owner told CNN about the impact that this whiplash is having on her.
A pause is better than no pause, but the uncertainty is still really chaotic for a small business like me. And now, even if I move out of China, how am I going to be certain that if I place an order today, I won't find a new tariff tomorrow? This up and down is just something as a small business I can't pivot to.
So that's Sarah Wells from Sarah Wells Bags. Well, what do you say to small business owners or even big business owners who say they're having difficulty making long-term business decisions because the country seems right now to be run by capricious whim?
Oh, I don't think at all it's run by capricious whim. The way that I would think about it is that in the previous administration, you could sort of say, if you're thinking about it in a football analogy, is that they were running out the clock. And that what's going on now in the Trump administration is across a wide array of policy areas, we're in a two-minute offense. And the two-minute offense is pushing, as you've seen, the reconciliation bill through so that we get tax relief for American people, deregulation, and, of course, trade policy. Now, on the trade policy, the whole point of the trade policy is to address the national emergency that we're too dependent on foreign products in the U.S., especially if we were at a time of conflict. And we're doing something about that. And the reciprocal act was basically, guys, if you come to the table and negotiate with us and treat us the same way we treat you, then we'll get your rate really low. And so right now, 130 countries have responded, and we're negotiating with them, and they've got their rate down to 10%. And so really, it's kind of almost a two-world system. There's a process about China, and that's very, very nascent, if at all, and then the process for everybody else. So the process for everybody else is orderly, it's clear, people are coming to town with great offers. We've got Japan, Korea, India. I was just talking to the foreign minister of India, and everything is moving forward very quickly. And so I guess the bottom line is that the small business owner has experienced over the last few weeks the start of a process that's settling down really quite quickly. Again, 130 countries are at 10% now.
So let's talk about these 130 countries, because as you know better than I do, it typically takes months, if not years, to negotiate trade deals. Trump's signature trade deal from his first term, a great achievement, according to both Democrats and Republicans, NAFTA 2, or the USMCA, that took 15 months to put together. How exactly are you and your team and the USTR team, how are you going to negotiate deals that actually deliver for the American people with more than 100 countries in less than 3 months?
Oh, yeah. First of all, I just a little bit of more clarification. One of the things I like to ask people is, who's the chairman of the National Economic Council? And then everybody thinks, oh, it's you, Kevin. Well, no, I'm the director. The chairman of the National Economic Council is President Trump. And so what President Trump does is he sets out a path for everybody, for Howard Lutnick and Scott Bassett and for Jameson, on how they would move forward on a particular policy matter. And then it's my job as director to make sure that the president's wishes are being fulfilled. I'm kind of there to help everybody succeed. And I can tell you, I've been watching the people who are assigned to different assignments working really, really hard on getting trade deals forward over the last many weeks. And so one of the things that we were thinking about this week was that we had a few of these deals that are so close to baked that we could announce that we have a deal in principle. You're right that getting the fine print out would maybe take a little longer, but we were thinking about announcing a deal in principle even this week, but then we were making so much progress so rapidly that the president decided to instead of having one or two things right now, just go for the 10% pause. And I think it was the right answer given the massive amount of momentum that we've been seeing.
Yeah, so let's talk about Lutnick and Jameson Greer, because last Sunday, the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, was on a different show. He was talking about tariffs, and he was saying that what these are going to do is it's going to bring iPhone manufacturing to the United States. 5 days ago, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer told senators, quote, "The president has been clear with me and with others that he does not intend to have exclusions and exemptions," unquote, to these tariffs. But now we know about these carve-outs for electronics imported to the U.S. that you talked about at the top. smartphones, computers, chips, it's a contradictory message. I mean, I understand that you're saying that this was the plan, but Lutnick, it seems like nobody told Lutnick and Greer.
No, I disagree with that. I think that absolutely the characterization that I gave you at the top of the hour is the thing that everybody understood all along. But I can see that when you're getting interviewed here, interviewed there, that somehow, like, not having the time like you and I have now, just show the big picture, can make it so that people don't have a complete picture of what's going on.
Well, Greer is in Senate
think
testimony.
About it this way. No, but think about it this way again, that there are these 232s which are coming, that are announced in the Reciprocal Trade Act, and the things that are going to be in the 232s, like the cannonballs that we need so that we can have something to put in the cannon, those things are in progress. And while those are in progress, these, say, 10% on most of the world tariffs will not apply to those things. And so then there's a question, an interpretation, what you say, okay, if you're not applying a semiconductor to those things, then what does that exactly mean? Because the U.S. doesn't really import a whole lot of just semiconductors. The semiconductors are in things. And it's very, very natural for the Commerce Department, and I think the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, is one of the best Commerce secretaries I've ever worked with, that he had his team go through and say, well, what does it mean to comply with this order? And that's what came out. I don't think that it was rushed or disorganized at all.
These exemptions are only for items that will help our Defense Department needs? It's not iPhones in general? It's not semiconductors in general for commercial use?
There's a long list, which you could put a graphic up, of the things that are that we're planning 232 actions on because they're necessary for national security. And those things that are on that long list are things that will be exempt until those 232s happen.
But you understand how some people might look at this and say, this doesn't really make sense in terms of the president's larger goal. If the President Trump and you and your team are all trying to reshore manufacturing so that American manufacturing for phones and computers is happening here in the United States, and along with all these great middle-class jobs that would go with it, that you're exempting those items while at the same time the reshoring and manufacturing of the production of sneakers and T-shirts would happen here, and that seems to be completely the opposite of the goal, right?
That's just a perspective. If you think that we're going to fail to deliver on the 232s, then your question would be one to wonder about. But the 232s will be successful. We've already got 232 steel and aluminum, for example, and so that wouldn't be covered by the reciprocal part. And we've got 232 on autos. That's not covered by the reciprocal part. So those other things are going to happen, and it makes a great deal of sense. So the one final thing I want to say is going back to, like, why are we doing this in the first place? There's the national security matter, but there's also what it means for the American worker. And so when we look at, say, the small business person who's concerned that the price of their goods is going to be higher when they sell it to their customers, the thing that they also have to remember is that these policies, which the president successfully enacted in the first term, are going to increase the demand for labor, increase wages, up by almost $6,500 in the first 3 years of the Trump administration. And so what it means is that even if you accept the naysayers' perspective on what might happen to the price of a cup of coffee, that the person walking into the coffee shop is going to have a lot more money. In the 15 years after China entered the WTO, real wages went down. So wages went down by more than prices, as we thought these cheap goods were going to revolutionize America. In fact, it was the opposite. Welfare went down. We had Angus Deaton write a whole book about the deaths of despair that were related to this. And so I think we're very optimistic about the fact that people are going to have more money in their pockets and that they're going to have a higher standard of living.
Well, right now, I mean, wealth has disappeared from the market. And as you know, the fears of a global recession or a United States recession have increased even among business supporters, business leaders who support President Trump.
Well, what you're seeing is that the survey data is what we call is soft data. The survey data has been showing that people are anxious about the changes a little bit, but the hard data have been really, really strong, as you know. In fact, if you looked at the latest jobs report, it was way, way above even what I expected. And so what's happening is that people are racing to create jobs and to make stuff here in the U.S. If they make it in the U.S., they're not going to pay any tariff. And there's an explosion in the labor market that's really surprised me,
well,
right? And so you can't have a lot of new employment and then have like a recession. It's just
but you know the jobs data was from before the Liberation Day. I mean, there's before all these global tariffs.
Not all those, but also it was clear, I think, that the jobs data were anticipation of something happening.